sit up straight.
Oh, it's still frumpy.
You're just a frumpy guy.
Just Sir Frumps a lot.
Yeah, as long as you don't get too far away from me. There's so much space. Betwixt us.
Betwixt.
Well,
We're here.
should we get started?
Hello, welcome back to our channel.
I'm Ruth.
And I'm Thomas.
And today we're gonna tell you the story of how we met. We've already done 10 dates at this point, and we felt like it was about time that we introduce who we are and
Why we like each other.
yeah, how we fell in love.
Aww.
Well, I'll start us off, I guess.
Kick us off.
So, in the beginning, we both went to Truman State University.
That was so biblical.
That was.
In the beginning, Ruth.
There was Ruth. It was good.
Wow.
In the beginning, we both went to Truman State University for college, which if you haven't heard of it, it's also known as Harvard of the Midwest, Princeton of the Prairie.
The Cornell of the cornfields.
Yes. By happenstance, we lived in the same dorm freshman year, different floors, but I noticed him right off the bat because I thought he was the cutest guy at Truman. Maybe every month or so I would see him walking around campus in this like really dapper suit, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's probably like a business major going to some like big business pitch or whatever business people do. I thought like this guy's a success. Like he's made it in the world. He's confident in himself and he wears a really nice suit. Come to find out, this boy was a history major and his...
Are you besmirching the degree of history?
No, I'm just saying. He was not a business major, he was a history major, and that suit was just his good luck outfit for test days.
It was a dress well, test well mentality. If you dress for success, you test better than otherwise.
Anyway, it worked because it made me notice him pretty early on. I remember one time I was walking into our dorm. Just as I was about to, Thomas came in front of me and opened the door for me, and I was like, he's a gentleman too?
I had my peripherals engaged always to know when there's a pretty woman aside me, behind me, or in front of me.
He does not remember that moment
and
at all.
I knew that the love of my life
Yeah,
was right there. And so I got the door for her and said, after you. And then we both got involved in the same campus ministry, and so we would see each other.
CCF.
We're kind of rolling in the same groups of friends, friendly but not close.
Acquaintances. Friendly acquaintances, I would say.
And I remember one specific time we were leaving CCF, one service. I was holding the door because I was trying to find my wife, and I figured that would look good. Ruth and her posse of friends stopped right in the middle of the doorway. There's like only one door to get in and out of service, and service is coming out, and Ruth stayed and chatted with me for a good 4 minutes, blocking the entire line of people trying to leave the service.
It was true love.
And I knew in that moment, I could marry this girl. It wasn't like earth-shattering, it wasn't like the heavens opened up, but I did walk away thinking, I want to marry someone who I have such an easy give and take with.
Aww. After that point, I just kind of dismissed the idea of ever dating him because everyone in our grade had a crush on him, and that kind of annoyed me. I was like, is he really that cool? Does he deserve that much attention? So from that point on, I decided to kind of be aloof because I am too cool to like the guy that everyone else likes.
That's how she wins the boys, right? You have to play hard to get.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Unbeknownst to her and I guess the entire community there, like I hadn't dated anyone ever. Ruth was my first girlfriend. So I had no...
Spoilers!
Oh, sorry. Did you know that we got together? I'm so sorry, I gave that away. So then spring break of sophomore year rolls around.
Our campus ministry goes on this service trip every spring break to camps down south to help them out. There's this thing in our campus ministry where everybody gets a paper bag, and throughout the week you can write someone an encouraging note and you drop it in their bag. And then at the end of the week, it's really fun to like get your bag and read through all the encouragement notes. One night, we decided to stay up super late and write these encouragement notes. It was like me,
It was the last night.
Me, Thomas, and a couple other people. Thomas and I got in this little rivalry to see who could write the most encouragement notes. It was very flirty.
That was kind of a turning point. After that trip, we did interact with each other. We knew each other by name. We knew a little bit about each other. So Ruth had left the beginning of junior year to go to Finland, and she studied abroad.
When I came back from Finland, we all got together as friends and went to this local diner that's very well known, Diner 54 in Kirksville.
Woo!
Afterwards, we went outside and it was like snowing. It was really romantic. And for whatever reason, we thought it would be really funny to do this like very awkward walk. Should we demonstrate?
And we could.
Oh, we'll
might
go back
have to
here.
back over here. I don't even remember how it was. It was just
kind of like this.
It was just like a saunter.
And we were just like staring at the people inside the window.
It was like a game of chicken between who could get the closest to the window and scare the people inside.
I don't know what, like it was just me and you, like no one else
wanted to participate. And it was in that moment that I realized this girl is up for anything.
It's weird.
She's weird, but she brings out the weird in me, and out of all these people who are too cool and think we're too strange, like she's willing to be strange enough for me. And I love that.
Aw, so cute. I was looking for somebody that could be goofy and adventurous, and I feel like our first few interactions really affirmed that, or just showed me that that's definitely part of his character. So over that next year, we had the student union building, and there was this big open area with a piano and some comfy chairs. Every so often, they would have jazz in the sub. So people would just come randomly and play some jazz. We had found out that we both really liked jazz.
Yeah.
And so anytime there was somebody playing in the sub, we would message each other on Facebook. This was like the first time we had messaged. We didn't have phone numbers yet. We were just messaging on Facebook. And I would say like, oh my gosh, jazz in the sub, hurry. Or he would say vice versa. And it was just kind of a fun way that we would get to see each other and bonded over something as weird as jazz. Like, I don't feel like a lot of people really like jazz.
So I had started running, but I wasn't a great runner. We had a group of friends that was specifically going to do this one marathon. Mm-hmm. And I remember having this conversation with my buddy, and he was saying, oh, you should do this marathon. I was like, I'll never run a marathon. I won't even run a half. Just out of curiosity, who's running it? And he said, well, I think Mitchell, Kyle, I know Will is going to, and I think Ruth is going to. And I said, oh, I'm gonna run that marathon.
Oh, I'm actually free.
I'm free that day. I'm gonna run a marathon.
So our friend group started going on like training runs together,
mm-hmm.
and it was a bunch of like really fit guys and then me basically. So my running pace was much slower than everyone else's. And the only person who would run my speed was this charming gentleman, Thomas. So now it is spring break of our junior year. We are still training for this marathon on this trip. So we're going on runs with people. And it happens to be my 22nd birthday. Mm-hmm. And so I did not know this, but a bunch of my friends were planning some little birthday shindig for me. And they were like, okay, Thomas, you have to distract her. You got to get her off of property for a while so that we can set up for this thing.
And so we went for this evening run.
I was really excited, by the way. Like this was the first time we were going to be hanging out for an extended amount of time, one-on-one. The run was so fun. We just had an absolute blast. It was so easy to talk to you, and like it just
we talked about everything. Our families, our upbringing, our likes, dislikes, hobbies, travel plans, hopes for the future, ideas. I think we even talked about children, if we wanted children someday.
Yeah, we covered it all.
So then we came back from that spring break trip and we decided to just be running buddies.
Running is an interesting way to get to know somebody because all you can do is talk. Like you're just running in a straight line for so many miles. There's nothing to do but talk. You're not like watching TV or playing a game, or you get to know each other really well, really quickly. And you also see the worst side of each other. I'm like sweaty and dying and miserable.
I'm farting and burping. You see, it's a very intimate glimpse into what your future's gonna look like if you decide to pick this person.
All the bodily functions.
You know, you really get to see how your dynamic is under a stressful situation.
Very true. Another thing I noticed about him that I thought was really cool was that on all of our runs, he would pick up trash when he saw it. Even if it meant he had to like run way off the road to go get it, he would always pick up trash. I thought that was really cool that he noticed those kinds of things. He was intentional about, you know, caring for the world or caring for the earth, but just that he was kind of like service-minded and just had that sort of outlook on life. So throughout this time of training, we started hanging out more and more. Like we would go for a run and then he would be like, do you want to come back to my place and
I have to cook lunch.
cook a meal? I mean,
I've got too much food. I can't eat it all myself.
We just burned all those calories.
I could eat it all myself.
He lived with like 6 other college guys, and so I ended up like just being at their house a lot, either cooking meals or icing our knees or whatever, just kind of spending time outside of the running time.
And I remember one time she was cold, and so I went and grabbed a sweatshirt.
Ooh, the sweatshirt.
And I grabbed this crew neck sweatshirt and I brought it, and I was like, the yellow crew neck sweatshirt, and I was like, hey, I've got this. It's really warm. It's really soft on the inside. You know, you might like this. And Ruth was seen in public wearing my sweatshirt.
That's such a boyfriend move.
It was just like we were the best of friends. At this point, it was over this time that you truly became my best friend.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, we did everything together. I was trying to drop a few signals that I really liked her and wanted to see her some more. At one point, we went on this run and we walked by this beautiful creek flowing, and this creek had like a little patch of sunlight and a grassy patch in it. And I said, man, that's really beautiful. Sometime we should go on a picnic out here.
And I immediately went back to my friends and I was like, friends, guys, is picnic inherently romantic? If a guy asks you on a picnic, is that romantic? Can you have an unromantic picnic? Can you have a picnic just as friends?
I thought no. I thought this is inherently romantic. I'm throwing out feelers. I am expressing interest in this girl.
Well, here's what my friends said. Do not take that as any sign. You better guard your heart, girl, because this boy does not date. He is not interested. He just sees you as friends. He's just a friendly guy, and so you can't take that for more than it is. So the month between spring break and our marathon, we were running together, we were cooking meals together, we went rock climbing together. So I'm thinking like, yeah, there's no way this is ever gonna happen, but how fun that we're good friends.
It was this will they, won't they, Ross and Rachel.
Anyway, it's marathon time.
So we drive to Champaign-Urbana with all of our friends to do the Christie Clinic Marathon 2015.
So at the marathon, Thomas's family came to cheer him on. We had all lined up, getting ready to run. His family was standing right outside the fence. He was like, oh, there's my family. Like, I'm gonna go say hi to them. So I followed, of course, a little bit behind him. And so he's like greeting his family, hugging them. The whole time, does not introduce me, does not acknowledge me, until his mom, was it your mom that was like, oh,
this must be Ruth.
Is this Ruth? And you were like, oh, yeah, this is my friend Ruth. But they knew my name, so does that mean
I had been talking, yeah.
Oh, you've been talking about me.
Mm-hmm.
Like saying what?
Well, they knew that we were going to be running the marathon together. And I think I had even had the conversation with my mom.
Really?
Yeah. Not about, oh, I like her, but her being like, oh, she seems cute. She seems fun. You talk about her. Do you like her? And it's like, yeah. I mean, she's a potential. She's pretty cool. I like her. You know, she's fun.
Okay, so we ran this marathon, and let me just try to describe how Thomas was on this marathon. He was the most peppy, excited runner in this entire marathon of like 10,000 people. This guy greeted and thanked every single volunteer standing along the sides, saying things like, you're awesome. Thank you for coming. You're the best. The whole time, and just like waving and like jumping, and he was so excited. He was like kind of up ahead of me, and I was running with some ladies, and they were like pointing him out, like, hey, do you see that guy with the long hair up there? He's kind of crazy.
Who's that cute guy, right? I mean, he's hot. Look at his butt.
They were like, he's crazy. And I was just back there like, oh gosh, I don't know him. At mile 20, it started storming and lightning and thunder. And actually they called off the race.
They shut down the entire race.
So like the police officers that were closing off the roads went home, and like they were no longer barricading anything. So cars are coming and we're having to run on the sidewalk.
They went by with like, with megaphones and were shouting at us to like, get off the road, get off the course. The race has been shut down.
And it was like, man, if we stopped now, we would totally regret it. So we decided just keep pushing through it. And there were quite a few other runners that did as well. Our shoes are soaking wet. We're freezing cold. Like my lips are purple.
Yeah, very purple.
Yeah. So we finished the race. It was awesome. We hugged each other.
And I don't know if she remembers this, but I actually kissed her on the head as we crossed the finish line. Yeah. I had thought through that moment ever since we started training. I was like, if we finish this marathon together, I'm just gonna give her a big old hug and kiss the top of her head. And so we crossed the finish line and we got our pictures.
Too bad there's not a photo.
We got a hug, and I just gave you a kiss of, we did it. We did it.
So as romantic as that moment was, when we got home, I remember that I called my mom and said, there's no way I could ever date this guy.
What?
Just his like his peppiness, his energy. And this sounds really terrible on my part, that like I would discredit him because he was so excited, but it was like too much for me. It was like a whole nother level of excitement. So yeah, I told my mom, I was like, I don't think so. I don't think I could date this guy. And so after that point, I had just in my mind kind of like put it to rest. Like, you know what? Maybe we're just not meant to be. We've been hanging out for months. He hasn't asked me out anyway. It's probably just not a thing.
After the marathon, there were marathon pictures. There was a photographer there, and she texted me as I was studying in the sub, and she said, hey, let's look at those pictures because they've gone up. And we sat on a couch in the library, and she sat like this, looking over my shoulder, just leaning on me.
That's really dramatic.
But she did. She sat like this to look at the pictures. So I knew that we had this chemistry, and I almost knew that we were going to be dating at some point. People that were asking, are you going to ever ask this girl out? And I said, yes, I am resolved to do it when the time comes. I didn't know when I would get her alone because we weren't running together anymore, and I wasn't sure how to set it up.
So now it's Wednesday of finals week. It's like almost the end of the semester. And you know, I've given up all hope by this point. And I get a text from Thomas Finney. And it says, hey, do you want to go for a walk and talk? Providentially, I was with 3 of my good girlfriends, and so immediately I showed them and I was like, oh my gosh, guys, what does this mean? Like, is this just like a walk and talk, or is this like a walk and talk? A lot of people by that point were kind of like, okay, are you a thing? Are you dating? What's going on? Like, we see you guys hanging out a lot. You know how college is. They ship you immediately if you're hanging out. So in my mind, this conversation could have gone one of 3 ways. Number 1, he just wanted to walk and talk. Like, you know, it's finals week, let's hang out, you know, get our minds off of finals. Number 2, hey, I wanted to clear the air that we're just friends. Ooh, it could have gone that way, or it could be, I like you, I want to ask you out. But I wanted to be mentally prepared for any situation so that I wouldn't get excited and then get really let down. Okay, so that's important to remember as this goes on.
Yes.
So we meet up, we walk for 2 hours, and he brings up nothing. Like, we're just small talking, walking for 2 hours. At that point, I'm like, okay, maybe he just wanted to walk and hang out. You know, that's cool. That's cool. Finally, we get to this area called Red Barn Park. It's basically a big hill with a barn and a little river. Red Barn. And a cute little creek at the bottom. Very romantic. We find this big tree, and he's like, why don't we just sit here for a minute? And we're talking. And finally, I'm like, I have finals to study for. We got to get this thing moving along. So I say, is there anything specific that you wanted to talk to me about today?
Because I couldn't say it myself. I didn't have the courage myself to say it.
I had to help you along. I was like, I'm going to help this boy along. Is there anything specific that you wanted to talk about today?
And I say, yes. And I let it set.
For the next 5 minutes, there's complete silence. And that sounds really dramatic, and you might be like, Ruth, you're totally over-exaggerating. But if you know Thomas, when he's like processing and thinking, like even when we have like arguments or discussions, he needs to process what he's gonna say for a long amount of time.
I saw a potential wife. At some point, I want to marry this woman. Mm. And to start that stage of my life was very intimidating to me. Mm. It was going to ruin, in some regards, this easy friendship.
It was like 5 minutes of complete silence, as you can just like see the gears churning in his head as he's like building up the courage to say whatever he's gonna say. So he ended up saying, Ruth,
I like you a lot. And you chimed in with, yeah, you've been a really good friend.
Which apparently is a taboo word when it comes to talking to boys. I just meant it's been really great, like developing this relationship with you. But he heard friend zone, friend zone, friend zone. Basically, his plans had all been dashed right there in his mind. And so he just like changed the subject and started talking about something else.
She brings it back around, as she does.
Okay, so is there anything else you wanted to talk about today? This is word for word what he said to me here.
I like you a lot, Ruth. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I think it would behoove us to address the nature of our association.
What? Who says that?
Because we had this goofy, fun, give and take sort of relationship.
You were totally serious.
I wasn't totally serious. I was laughing as I was saying it. I wanted to have this conversation where we define our relationship. And you said...
I said... If you're asking me on a date, I would love to go. Again, trying to like help him along. Like, yes, take me on a date.
I said, well, that's not really what I'm asking. And she goes, what does he even want? Because I feel like we've already been on a first date and a second date and a third date.
I'm processing right now because I didn't even know that he liked me at all. So I'm trying to process that as he's saying, I want to take this to the next level.
So we have this conversation and I say, I see a potential future with you. I would, really like to even marry you someday. But...
Yeah, he pulled out the M word. I was like, what is happening? Like, cannot compute.
I knew that she was going to be going down to Texas to work at this camp for the next 3 months, and we weren't going to see each other. And so I thought, let's be dating.
Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. Mm-hmm. We will start courting and then get married in a year or two.
That Friday, we ended up going on our first real date. We went out to our park there, Thousand Hills.
We were interrupted by 2 raccoons who came in and stole my bag and stole some of the food I had prepared. We saw some romantic lanterns flying up over the lake.
Happened. I was like, oh my gosh, did you plan this? This is so romantic. What a guy. But just randomly 2 floating lanterns happened to go by, which was really cool.
I think I even said, because I knew it, I don't want to be anywhere else in the world except right here. Like, this is the perfect moment.
That's so cute.
It was, you were the perfect person and the moment was perfect.
It was. At the end of the night, we were sitting in his car and he asked me if I would be his girl. And I said yes.
And that's it.
So yeah, that's our story. Thank you guys for listening. We hope you enjoy it. And we will give you part 2 eventually when Ruth broke Thomas's heart.
Oh.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Bye.
Bye.